Hey everybody, it's Scott Steen with winnersandwhiners.com coming to you with our Memorial Day edition of Today in Sports Betting. As always, I'm joined by my partner in crime, my co-host with the most. He is all the way from Long Island, New York. He is Scott Reichel. Scott, happy Monday, happy Memorial Day. Good to have you aboard. What's going on, my friend?
Nothing much. Pretty busy weekend. We had to watch some golf and some NASCAR. We handicapped both of those, and it worked out pretty well. At least for me. Can't really complain. I ended up hitting a 10-1 winner with Keselowski on the outright, so that worked out pretty well. For golf, I had a plus 2,000 prop. I lost everything else, so it basically washed. But, any bit of profit's good profit, and then I also cashed pretty well in this poker tournament I was in yesterday and made a couple $100, so can't really complain.
Well, there you go. Not a bad weekend at all. Hey, we're going to talk a little sports coming back today. We're going to talk a little NHL, which is kind of got their stuff together. They've got probably furthest along as far as any of the big four coming back right now as far as proposals go. And who better to talk about it with than our sniper, our NHL expert over there at winnersandwhiners.com. He is David Hess from the great state of Maine. Dave, what's up there? Good to talk to you, buddy. Having a little lobster today?
No, I'm just in the house, chilling, staying safe. I watched the golf yesterday as well, so that was nice to see some live sports anyway.
Nothing says more about your sports day when it goes from golf to NASCAR. And you're happy to have both of them. So
can't forget about the cornhole on ESPN.
Dude, I actually watched some of the cornhole. I'm not going to lie.
It's always on. It's always on. It's the new consistent programming that's on randomly during the course of every day.
Very weird, But before we get started, I certainly wanted to take a moment to talk about the day that is Memorial Day. And first of all, thank you to everyone who has served our country, and a special thanks to all the families and to the people that have made the ultimate sacrifice, that do their best to keep us safe, that go over and do the things that very few of us want to do. They actually volunteer to do these things and go over there and break things and fight people and stand tall to keep us out of harm's way here, so we can keep doing the goofy ass things that we do as far as sports here. So we probably don't take enough time to thank those people that ensure that we have the ability to do that. So let's take a minute on Memorial Day to do just that. We appreciate it, and we acknowledge all of you veterans out there and the families of veterans, especially those of you who have made the ultimate sacrifice. So I wanted to take a minute and say that. It's always kind of a somber thing on Memorial Day. So let's talk a little sports here.
You got a barbecue plan for today?
No, I live in an apartment, and our common areas are still closed. So we've got some, and it really sucks because they put in some brand new barbecue grills at the end of last year. Beautiful gas fired grills.
But you don't have access to any of them.
And I don't have access to any
that
of them.
Sucks.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
And what about you? You got big plans?
No, not really. I might potentially be barbecuing. If not, I might just be hanging out with some friends playing poker online. So.
Now I have to correct you, Scott, because I am from Kansas City, Missouri. That is the barbecue capital of the world.
That's why I was asking if you were having a barbecue.
Yeah. See, there's a difference between barbecuing and grilling. You're using them interchangeably, and they're not interchangeable, unfortunately.
I apologize. I'm uncultured.
I'm here to help.
New York, so
I'm here to help. I know. I know how you East Coasters are. That's why I'm here to help. But grilling out is what we do with our burgers, our dogs. We put some steaks on the grill. Barbecuing is actually a long-term process where we smoke our meats and our ribs.
I'm just writing that down. Hang on a second. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Dave, what's your go-to barbecue? What do you like to throw on the grill, buddy?
I really don't grill, so.
You don't grill?
No.
No burgers, no dogs,
no.
steak?
Do you barbecue but not grill?
No, I don't do either.
Do you eat barbecue?
Oh, I love it. I love all the stuff that comes off the grill but I just don't do it myself. So.
Is there a barbecue joint in Maine, Dave? Where do you live? What town you in? You're in a small town, right?
Yeah.
How far do you got to go for a barbecue? Like to get a good rack of ribs, a nice pulled pork sandwich.
I don't know. There's some nice restaurants around here, but I don't. I don't really, I've lived up here, since 2002, and I still have yet to have lobster, so.
And that's why I was making fun of you, because you told me that last year when we first talked, when you started doing the podcast with me. And I'm like, man, I bet you love lobster. You're like, I've never had lobster.
I've had lobster before, just not since I've been living in Maine.
How could that be, Dave? How is that
I don't
possible?
know.
Okay.
He's too busy recapping wrestling. It's not his fault.
Does the lobster roll at McDonald's count?
They have a lobster roll at your McDonald's?
They used to when I first moved up here. They did.
Well, probably not, but but I'm jealous because we don't have lobster rolls at McDonald's here.
Oh.
So yeah. Anyway, Scott, do you guys have a good barbecue joint there in Long Island?
Somewhat. I'd say at least not anymore. Pretty much everything's closed besides the occasional drive-through stuff. But yeah, I mean, mostly my family would barbecue some stuff here or there for the holidays. So
cool.
We used to get creative with it, but not really so much anymore. But decent barbecue here in New York. I don't think it's Kansas City quality, but it's pretty good.
No, it is a phenomenal place to live if you like barbecue. I mean, we literally have 40 barbecue joints in town that are worth going to. It's it's a small claim to fame, but it is a tasty one.
Well, you have that and a Super Bowl ring now, so you got a couple of things for claim to fame.
I'm still waiting to get those Super Bowl rings so I can get my knockoff. Would you guys ever wear a knockoff ring with the where you get the replica ring for like $100?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I'd never wear it. I'd like to have one just to have it because it'd be cool.
I mean, if the Jets won, I'd go to the parade. I don't know if I'd buy a replica ring, but I would go to the ceremony.
One of the proudest moments of my life. My cousin actually had one of his best friends was a guy that played. He was a rookie for the Kansas City Chiefs when they won Super Bowl IV. And through a weird set of circumstances, I got to meet the guy. I actually got to try on his ring. It was like literally one of the highlights of my sporting life was putting on a Super Bowl IV real ring. So
cool.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So that $9 to get you a cup of coffee these days. So let's talk about some sports, boys. How about the NHL? They've got it going on. Dave, are you excited? Are you excited to get a little hockey back?
Yes, I am. I miss all the sports, but I do cover hockey a little bit more over at Winners and Winers, and so I am definitely looking forward to it. Not sure about the playoff situation, but I did a review of the entire season a little while ago, a couple months ago actually, because we just needed something to write at the time, and at that time I kind of expected them to go right to the playoffs and not have the regular season finish, and it looks like that's what they're gonna do now. So
right, and just a quick recap of what we're talking about. The National League. This is it was right off their press release. The Players Association Executive Board voted to approve a 24-team conference-based playoff format that has been authorized by the Executive Board of the Hockey League. So they've kind of come to an agreement on this. 24 teams start with the playoffs. Basically, going to throw out 7 teams because it's hockey and they do nothing like any other league. There's 31 teams. There's 15 in one and 16 in the other conference. So under the plan, the top 4 seeds in each conference is determined by the standings points when regular season stopped, which is back on March 12th. Man, how many lifetimes ago does that seem like? They would get buys through the round of the best-of-5 play-in series that would feature the seeds 5 through 12. Play-in series would determine which teams advance to the traditional 16-team Stanley Cup playoff bracket, which would then begin the 7-game series. So that would look more like what they're used to, 16 games being the normal playoff series, as you have 4 series in each league going on.
So just to recap that, the play-in series would be best of 5, you said?
Correct. Play-in series would be best of 5, and then they go best of 7 once they got to the regular 16-team format like they normally have. So your thoughts on that? Scott, what do you think? Is that the best they can do? Is that a fair plan, do you think?
I'm an Islanders fan, so now we're suddenly in the playoffs. I'm all in on the plan. No, but actually talking about realistically how feasible this is, there's no perfect situation. And I feel like everyone understands that who follows other sports and how chaotic it's been to try to come up with a plan. This plan is one of the better plans that I've heard from all the other leagues, which is kind of funny because we were talking about last week how the NHL has basically done nothing over the span of about a month and a half. And now they suddenly have the best plan of all the major sports, which came out of nowhere. But I like it. And people might say, well, it's not the same situation. You're giving other teams a chance they don't deserve. And the truth is, I don't care. The NHL is focused so much on trying to acquire ratings. And I think that if you were going to expand the playoff, yes, the regular season would mean less. But wouldn't you agree you'd rather have an expanded playoff than no playoff at all? I think everybody would agree with that unanimously. So from that perspective, it might seem a little bit excessive adding that many extra teams. I really don't care. And I think Stanley Cup playoffs, not including March Madness, is the greatest playoffs in all of sports. And I think if you're willing to expand that and you're willing to add roughly four teams in each conference, ballpark range, you're just going to make the greatest playoffs longer. I'm all in. I'm all in on that venture. I think that'll be very entertaining television.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you. It looks like all of the states, now that New York has given permission to go ahead and have training camp. The only state that was the holdup was California, but luckily all three California teams are at the bottom of the Western. At the Western.
Luckily, all three LA teams are trash. So
right. Well, the Ducks and the Kings, the Sharks is not exactly LA.
Yeah, I meant California itself.
But yeah,
not great over there.
Those are the three teams that would be left out of the West. So, Dave, couple questions. Do you like the plan? Second question: what the hell's wrong with California hockey?
I don't know. They used to be pretty good. I mean, I remember, the Kings were pretty good. The Sharks were always near the top of the standings, and I remember that one year the Ducks were like in last place in December, and then they came back and they won the division. So
I think that was a movie, Dave.
They made 3 movies actually.
I know. So what Dave? Do you like this plan? Do you think that you like the expanded playoffs? Think it'll be fun?
Yeah, it could be fun. I'm not so sure. I think the baseball playoffs are a little bit more exciting than the hockey playoffs. So. I don't agree with Scott Reichel on that one.
I don't like the one game playoff. I don't like the one game.
Yeah, I don't like that in baseball, no. But once it gets to the divisional and championship and the World Series rounds, I think that is, every pitch means something. And
yeah, fair enough.
So
I think it's like the unpredictability in hockey. Baseball, I do love the baseball playoffs. I also agree I'm not a big one-game playoff guy. I understand you want to give the advantage to the teams that had the best record in their respective conferences, leagues, whatever you want to call it. I'm just not a fan of the one-game playoff. I just don't think that is a great idea in general. But in terms of the baseball playoffs, I'm fine with it. Am I the one who thinks every game after an entire season of having a pitch clock, it seems like every game takes roughly 9 hours in the playoffs? Seems like every Braves-Cardinals game in that first round took roughly 4.5 hours.
Well, if you notice, too, throughout the course of the season, ESPN games take longer. It's the televised games that really take a lot longer.
Yeah.
Than the games that aren't nationally televised.
I think that's the issue I have with the baseball playoffs, is that it just seems like every game that's televised feels like it takes roughly half an hour, 45 minutes longer than it would in a regular season game.
Well, that's not really your imagination, because every televised playoff game commercial breaks are 2:35, and in the regular season they're 2:03 or 2:05, I believe. So
yeah. I know the Cardinals-Braves series was a phenomenal series that went 5 games, but I think we can agree, since you were probably watching all those games, every game felt like it took roughly 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
Another reason for that is playoff games are so much more important, and you're going to see a lot more pitching changes and stuff like that. So that's another reason why the game's
Terry Francona.
It's the pace for me. That's a little bit of the issue that I have with playoff baseball. I feel like they need to go a little bit faster.
Yeah.
But
it'll be, and I kind of, Scott and I, when you and I talked, we kind of had our doubts about hockey just because of the atmosphere, because it was cold.
I didn't hear about them. They went off the grid for 2 months. I didn't really know what they were up to.
Well, instead of posturing in front of social media for the last 6 weeks like the MLB has done, they actually rolled up their sleeves and got the works. So God bless them. That's a great job, guys. That's it would just be perfect in the landscape of bizarro sports world That I'm now, of course, a golf fan, a NASCAR fan. It would just fall right in line that my weakest of the four sports, which would be hockey, that would be the one that comes back. So
never too late to learn. Never too late to learn.
No, it's not. That's what everybody says. So,
by the way, Scott, just so you didn't know, there's this circular type of thing called it's like a cylinder. It's called the puck, and you have to try to get it in the net, and whoever gets it in the net most wins.
Slow down. I'm writing this down.
Okay, just letting you know.
Very good.
Yeah, before I started writing for Winners and Wonders, hockey was my weakest link. When Ben hired me, it was to be a hockey guy. So I did a lot of reading and a lot of research on it. And to me, the hardest part was just getting the names down. I mean, to try and spell them when you're writing them. So I got to the point where I just copy and paste the name. So I don't have to worry about the 45 different letters that are in their names.
Hi, Dave. I'm Korean baseball. Have we met? And in Korean baseball, they have the opposite problem. They don't have long names, but they have names that are very similar. So that's been a challenge for me as far as handicap in Korean baseball goes. So it looks like this is going to happen. Of course, there's no hard and fast date set yet. And in the meantime, while we're actually prepping for this show, it looks like the NBA might actually be getting their, no offense to Anaheim, but getting their ducks in a row and setting up for a 16-team playoff system there to be played entirely at the wonderful world of Disney. So couple things about that. Number one, congratulations, NBA. Way to go. Number two, does the fact that these two sports are coming back and football is still on track to be on time to have their regular season played out on roughly the same schedule, is the window for baseball closing, guys? Is this – I read a lot of stuff on Twitter, as I'm sure you guys do too, that this is really the week for baseball. That if they don't get it together this week, we're probably done. Is that – you guys agree with that sentiment?
I don't know.
I'll let Dave take it first.
I don't know. I read recently where, baseball is inching closer and closer. It looks like they may have a deal with pay. Both the Major League Baseball Players Association and the league have come to some sort of agreement on the pay. So, baseball is inching closer. If they can get training camp started in mid-June, the regular season started in July, they can do a full 82-game season. And, they may go into late October, but it's still, it'll still be baseball. And they'll probably play it at one site, or a couple different sites, I should say. So.
Okay, Scott.
I don't know. I think they're coming. I think they're gonna get their act together and they're gonna get it done so that they can have a season.
Scott, you share Dave's optimism. I mean, we're coming down to the last week of May here, and you're talking about what, 2.5 weeks away from the middle of June. So, it's tick tock, boys. Do you share Mr. Hess's enthusiasm and optimism about getting the season going there for the MLB?
Not necessarily. I think the main issue where the MLB is at a disadvantage is the fact that the two leagues that they're competing with, the NHL and the NBA, are both in the middle of the season. So it's a lot more, I'd say, realistic for them to actually do whatever necessary to finish the season that they already started. Baseball hasn't started the season yet. So I would say that even though there is a pressure from a monetary perspective where they want to try to make some money, the point is that if you haven't really started a season yet, it's very tough to go through whatever plan you have, whereas the NHL and the NBA basically just need to figure something out for about a month before the season's over. Baseball needs to figure something out for about 3 to 4 months. So I think that they're already at a disadvantage because they have to plan significantly in advance because they have no season to actually start. They have no starting point. They got to start at the beginning. So that's the main issue I have. The salary cap or the salary play with the players is a separate concern, where I am not that optimistic about. I know that they've been working on it, and it might start to look a little bit better. It really depends on how, I don't want to say greedy the players and the owners are, but eventually someone's going to have to compromise, and the only question is, are they going to be willing to compromise enough? And I am not really sure about that. So there's a lot of variables at play. I'm a little bit skeptical on that. Would you want an 82-game baseball season? I'm not really sure if I would. I of course, you want the action and everything, but 82, that just seems so short of a baseball season to me, 82
Well,
games.
it would be weird to play all the games within your own, division from each league too, where you're not.
Am I alone on that? Am I just the one who feels like 82 games against your division in the same area or arena or anything like that? I just find that a little bit too weird for me. Am I wrong?
I was gonna say I get worried that a lot of people are gonna see an 82-game baseball season and go, you know what, that seems about right.
Yeah.
That seems like plenty of regular season baseball.
I think it should be somewhere north of 100, but I think somewhere around maybe 114, maybe 108, something like that. I think 82 is a little bit too short.
I think that Major League Baseball owners and players are a lot like the old Saturday Night Live MacGruber sketches, where he's got the bomb in there and he's trying to defuse it in 10 seconds and the clock's ticking down and he always fails. It always blows up. I think that's what's going to happen with these guys. I think the clock is ticking. They're absolutely up against this deadline. They're coming down to it. I think they're just going to let the bomb explode. I don't think they're going to play.
I don't think it's going to happen personally.
Yeah, Dave, I love you. I hope you're right. I hope Scott and I are dead wrong, just like I was on the NASCAR and golf yesterday. I hope I'm as horrible on this take as I was on those. But yeah, I don't know. So let's talk about. Let's talk about hockey. Let's talk about something that actually is going to happen. Dave, who do you like as far as the favorites go? Does it change anything for you? I mean, obviously out front, you've got some strong teams there in the East. You've got the Bruins, you've got the Lightning, of course the Blues, the defending champions. They're back on top, fighting out with the Avalanche there in the West. Does it give anybody an advantage or a disadvantage with this new format? Are the teams at the top going to have the bye? Does that give them an extra advantage as the teams have to slug it out through an extra couple rounds there?
Yeah, that might actually give the teams with the bye a disadvantage. I think because they've already been waiting so long to play, and now these teams that haven't played in a while are going to because the training camps that they're expected to have aren't going to be very long. They're talking about not being able to use all your players or all your coaches on the ice at the same time when you do on ice drills. So then there's those teams that play in the first round and don't have a bye are going to get the advantage of having played, and I think that's going to give them an advantage over the teams that will not play in the first round.
That's a great take, Scott. Do you agree with that topsy-turvy up is down take that would normally be quite different, as you'd be looking for teams at the end of their 82 game season that was just dying to get some rest and would enjoy the bye? Do you think it is going to give the teams that actually have to play their way in an added advantage because these guys have been inactive for so long?
I actually made 2 plays on this yesterday. I have the Canadians at 150-1 and the Blackhawks at 150-1. So yes, I agree. I think that if you're going to give out odds that long, it was on Fox Bet. They're both at 150-1. I checked today; they're both at 50-1. So apparently other people had the same idea that I had, but conceptually speaking, if there's going to be pretty much no complete team practices because you can only have, like 6 players at a time with no coaches or something?
Yeah.
So you're not really going to have much of a time to rebuild some of the chemistry that you lost during the course of the makeshift offseason. And with a couple of teams getting buys, they're just going to extend the amount of time they haven't played, whereas the other teams are going to have 5 games maximum of preparation before they get into the other series. So I think that actually does provide an advantage. And do I think the Blackhawks and Canadians are good hockey teams? No. But you're giving me 150-1 on 2 teams that have the potential to win a best-of-5 series, and then I'll have a playing time advantage over the rest of their competition for the remainder of the playoffs. I'll take the underdogs there. I got both at 150-1, so I really can't complain.
Okay. All right. Good enough. Dave, anybody stand out to you? Anybody? By the way, on BetOnline, you can still get the Blackhawks at 125-1. So
yeah,
it's
well, the Bruins were one of the they had the best points in the league heading into the break. But like I said, I think that, the time off could hurt them. I mean, they will probably be playing one of the very low seeds, one team that, wouldn't make the playoffs had they not stopped the season. But, I still think Boston should get through it, their first round. But, if I was to take, a team, I might look at the Blue Jackets. They went into the break kind of hot. They're not going to get a bye, so they're going to have that extra advantage. And, taking the break could, hurt their momentum. But in this case, I think it's going to help them just because, like I said, they're going to get to play before any of the top 4 teams. They're a team to look at. I know that on the West, the Las Vegas Golden Knights will get a bye, but I kind of still like them. I like them, and I like the Blues to make their way to the finals. I think both those are two. The Golden Knights were very, very hot heading into the break, and they're at one point right after the pause hit. They were actually favored to win it all, and they didn't have come. They had the lowest points of any team that led a division. So, but they were favored to win it all, and I don't know if they can win it all, but I think that they will be in the Western Conference Finals anyway against the Blues.
Is there? And I'm going to put this out for both of you guys, and I don't know if either one of you would know the answer, but is there any team that the break helped as far as having some crucial injuries that were maybe banged up that were going to take 4 to 6 weeks to heal, that they were able to heal over the break and are now going to be back to full strength? Is there anybody that fits that slot? Is there any team that you may have written off 2 months ago in the midst of the regular season, but now they're going to be rejuvenated, they'll be back to full strength and maybe able to make a run? Scott, I'll start with you. Any team kind of fit the bill for that one?
Well, if we're talking solely about injuries, you'd have to lean to Pittsburgh. And the reason why is because of the fact, I don't know if Jake Gensel will be back or not. I know that he ended up suffering a serious injury, and now he at least has a better chance of coming back. They missed Crosby for most of the year, but Crosby came back right before the season got shut down, so he's healthy. Pittsburgh hasn't really been at full strength all year, and even though Pittsburgh has won a couple of cups lately, so they're still fresh in everybody's mind, and just historically speaking, they're tremendous if you look at the last 30 years or so. Assuming Gensel is able to come back, Pittsburgh definitely should be I'd say their line shouldn't be 15-1. I think their line should probably be closer to 10-1, something like that. I know Fox Bet is 11-1, but BetOnline is 15-1. That was like a potential steal. From an injury perspective, I'd have to go to Pittsburgh. If we're talking about solely from a slumping perspective, I'd have to go with the Islanders. And the reason why I like the Islanders here at 60-1 on BetOnline is based on the fact that the Islanders, first of all, they weren't projected to even make the playoffs based on how they've been playing over the last month or so. Very underwhelming. They were hovering around 500 for the last month, a little bit more. And now they still have Barry Trotz as their coach, still a very defensive-oriented team. And now that they're going to get in, this team doesn't really score many goals, which is an issue, but they also don't commit many mistakes defensively. And I feel like based on the situation where a lot of teams are going to be struggling to score based on chemistry and how they might be lacking some of the timing that they once had on whether it's the one-timer passes or the power play or stuff like that, I feel like the better defensive teams are going to thrive because these games should be a little bit more low scoring. So I think the Islanders at 60-1 on BetOnline definitely have a little bit more value than they did before the shutdown happened. So I'd lean to the Islanders there for value.
Didn't the Islanders have a big winning streak early in the season?
They did. They had a huge point streak where at home they got points in roughly 19 straight games. And it was phenomenal. But then after that, roughly around the All-Star break, they completely became a mediocre to below average team ever since. And they were hovering and they were slowly moving down in the standings. They were second in the division at one point, and now they're roughly fourth. So they kind of fell apart. But since they're adding more playoff spots and since they have an extra month or two to regroup, I think the Islanders at 60-1 with a Hall of Fame coach at Barry Trotz definitely is an attractive option if you're looking for a long shot at 60-1.
Okay. And Dave, what about you? Is there any team that you think the COVID-19 break has actually benefited? Anybody from an injury standpoint or momentum standpoint, like Scott was talking about?
Yeah, I agree with him on Pittsburgh. I was going to say Pittsburgh, and so I agree with him on Pittsburgh. I think, Washington had a couple of injuries that they should be healthier once the playoffs get underway. Another team is the Florida Panthers. They were hot and they were looking like a bona fide playoff team earlier in the year, and then they really slumped heading into the break. And I believe a lot of it was actually due to some injuries that they were starting to suffer. So they could be a team to watch too. The Nashville Predators are another team. I mean, that's not really injury related, but they were also hot heading into the break, and they're a team that does seem to have some good success in the playoffs, and if they can get their mojo back that they had, and they're another team that won't be playing in the first round, so they could be another team to watch too. I mean, they did have some injuries. I don't know if they started to get them back right before the break, and that's why they started to play better. But those are teams that I think you should be watching as far as maybe taking long shots or whatever as in the playoffs.
Well, I have one question for Dave about two of those teams that he mentioned. You mentioned the Golden Knights and you mentioned the Predators. With the long layoff, does it concern you that both teams have relatively new head coaches because they fired their coach midway through the year right before the shutdown happened?
That might actually help them. I mean, especially with the long layoff now, having all the meetings that they've been able to have during the break, even though it's been virtual meetings. I think that, that could help both teams. The other part of the coin is you also look at momentum. Momentum is a tricky thing. You go into a break with momentum, and then you have, you might not come out with it with the same momentum. So, momentum is a tricky thing, and it sometimes that is hard to judge as far as how a team will do after a break, whether they go in with momentum or, they go in struggling. Coming out of the break could help them just rejuvenate, which is, one of the reasons why I like, I say to watch out for the Florida Panthers. But, I think having new coaches, no, they're not going to get much time on the ice, but, they still had some virtual meetings, I'm sure, a lot of virtual meetings over the last couple of months. And that could actually, help ease the pain of the break.
Let me ask you guys this from a stamina standpoint. All the other sports seems like they're much easier to do at home training. In other words, all of the sports involve running, so you're certainly able to run, you're able to work out, you're able to do your cardio, you're lifting. If you're a football player, you're able to throw the ball, you're able to catch the ball if you have a jugs machine. I know most of these major leaguers have access to their own batting cages, probably have one in their house, but they're able to swing the bat, at least to hit the ball off a tee. But as far as the hockey players go, because obviously it's all about skating, it's all about endurance. Most of the hockey rinks have been shut down. Is that going to put them at a competitive disadvantage? Is there going to be is the slope going to be taller for these guys to get back in game form than it would be for a basketball player who's got a basketball goal at his house, who's able to run, a baseball player who's able to take swings? Does it present a specific set of challenges to hockey players that are not present in other sports? Scott, what do you think?
I think it's unique, but at the same point, I don't think it's going to make much of an impact. Besides just skating, NHL players spend a lot of time in the gym. And I think if you're able to work out in general, I think you'll be fine. Second of all, a lot of it's muscle memory. These people have been skating since they've been roughly 3 years old. I think they'll be fine. You have to wonder maybe initially they might not be as sharp as they want to be. But I think considering the fact that they have so many just hours and hours of skating over the course of their lives, I feel like it's the equivalent of not going biking and then picking up a bike for the first time in a year, and you still know how to ride it. You still know exactly what to do. You can still work, do what you did normally because it's just in the back of your mind. And it's the same thing with skating. These people have been skating since they were in peewee hockey. I think that they'll just be able to pick it up without really much of an issue.
Dave, and do you agree with that? I mean, because you're not using, even if you're working out at your house and you're running, you're still not using the same muscles that you use to skate. And am I alone on this one? Scott says no, it's muscle memory. You're staying in shape. Good shape is good shape. Dave, do you agree, or do you think there's a little bit of a challenge there?
No, I actually think you're alone on this one.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're not going to have regular training camps, but the players are going to be able to get out on the ice before the games start. And so they are going to be able, and like Scott said, it's muscle memory. These players have been skating since forever. I personally don't know how to skate, so when I go roller skating, the janitors thinks he can take the night off because I'm too busy sweeping up the floor with my butt.
Nice.
So, but so I mean I don't know how to ice skate either. So, but I think these guys, they have been all their lives they've been skating, since they're 3, 4, 5 years old. So it's just like riding a bike for them. So
Scott,
I don't think they're going to have much of a challenge with that.
All right, fair enough. That's a good take. Scott, do you ice skate?
Not well.
You can do it.
Not really. I kind of do the penguin waddle technique where I kind of just lean forward with my hands out and I try not to face plant.
You have been upright on a pair of ice skates.
I believe I've taken at least 3 strides without falling. So
I have not. I've never strapped on a pair of ice skates in my life. Dave, you ever had a pair on?
Yeah, I've tried my hand at ice skating. I'm a little too clumsy for it, I think.
Well, see, and I've always had a wide foot, so I could never just go to a skating rink and like put on a pair of ice skates. Even when I was like relatively in shape when I was a kid, still had a wide foot, so I couldn't just go to the rink and get a pair of ice skates and try them on. So I've never been. I used to be a roller skater. I used to roller skate a little bit. I used to have my own skates and did the Friday night thing. I could actually. I don't know what the dividing. I could skate backwards. All right, so that I don't know what your dividing point for being a good roller skater is, but ice skating, fat man, bad ankles, wide feet. It just never seems like a good thing to do. So it's always interesting too, and I think that's why I never got into hockey. It's never something that was was within my grasp. Played baseball, even shot baskets, played football, of course, but just never grew up around the hockey. Dave, where'd you grow up? I know you didn't grow up in Maine. Did you grow up somewhere with hockey?
Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, Allentown.
Okay.
So
definitely
we had more roller skating rinks around there at the time. Plus, the winters were a lot colder at that when I was a lot younger too. So we did have some ice skating rinks and outside ice skating rinks. I did go to them every once in a while. You get the ice skating rink, and then there's the hot chocolate stand and all that stuff, and you make a Friday night out of it. But I just was never good at ice skating. So
all right. So we've talked a little bit about some of the long shots. Dave thinks the Golden Knights may reign supreme. They're coming out of the West, carrying some of that momentum through. Scott, what do you got for your favorites at the end of the day when the smoke is cleared? You don't really think the Blackhawks are going to win. Who do you think is going to win?
Well, I hope my bankroll hopes the Blackhawks win. For the actual Stanley Cup, I don't want to sound repetitive, but before the season started, I said I thought the Bruins would win the championship. I looked in, I said the Bruins will be motivated after pretty much choking away Game 7 at home last year, and I thought that would be the fire that they needed to stay focused for this year. I still thought the Bruins have a phenomenal team going in. They got off to a really hot start. Then they kind of fell apart a little bit after the All-Star break, and now they have the long layoff. I think when in doubt, the Bruins have the best team in the entire league, and I think the Bruins are the class of the NHL. Of course, hockey's unpredictable just based on the nature of the sport, which is why I love the playoffs so much. But if I had to pick one team with my quote-unquote life depending on it, I'd pick the Bruins.
Okay. I'll let you expand a little bit. Give me your finals. The Bruins and who?
All right. I think the Western Conference a complete toss-up. As what people saw before the shutdown, it seemed like a lot of teams had a shot potentially in the Western Conference. So I really think it could be up in the air. I don't know, because I really like the Blues also, but the odds of you having a rematch in the Stanley Cup playoffs is almost impossible. So that I don't really see that happening.
You realize that's not a thing, right?
I know. It's just a matter of I just think hockey is so unpredictable. I just don't see the same two teams facing each other in back-to-back years. I just don't see that happening.
Okay.
If I had to lean anywhere, I guess I'd lean St. Louis. But if you wanted a team that I think has some value, I think it'll be the Oilers at 25-1. I think the Oilers have a pretty decent shot at making the Stanley Cup. I think Connor McDavid's either the best player on the planet or the second best player on the planet. The guy's insane. He's one of the most talented players I've ever seen on a rink. And I think that he has the ability to just take over any game at any time. Of course, it contradicts itself because the Oilers would have to play the Blackhawks in the first round. So that kind of would force my hand one way or another. But I really think the Western Conference is going to be a complete crapshoot. I'll lean to Edmonton there, but I definitely like the Bruins to win the Cup.
All right, Dave. He says Bruins over Oilers. What say you, Mr. Hess?
Well, I have to agree with them on the Bruins. All season I've been watching them. I've been writing about them. The Bruins are clearly the best team in the league. They have the best offense. They have strong goaltending. They blow teams out. They are the best team in the league. And while I feel that the break will hurt them against the team that has already played, I still think that Boston will get through that first round, and then that will propel them, to win it all. And as far as the Western Conference, I'm gonna go with the Las Vegas Golden Knights. I think that they're gonna come out of it on the western side. So you're looking at a Bruins Las Vegas final, and I think it's gonna be the Bruins. I just think they're too talented.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you guys as far as the Bruins go. I really think they are the class of the NHL. Scott, I'm going to fade you. I'm going to go rematch. I'm going to go Bruins Blues.
I said I liked the Blues. I just couldn't do it. I just didn't have the heart to do it. But I do like the Blues a lot. Especially we're talking about injuries. If Tarasenko can come back, that's huge. Tarasenko's been out for a couple months.
Bruins. I say Bruins in 6. That's my official pick. Now I know you guys had some props worked up. And no show would be complete without Scott getting to share some props. And I know, Dave, you talked about some props as well. What are some of your favorite prop bets with this rejuvenated NHL season?
I'll let Dave go first on this one because I don't.
You can go first. I didn't actually have. I did a recap on the season, but I didn't come up with any prop bets. I'm sorry.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought you said you had some prop. Well, that'll teach me to pay attention in pre-interview. Scott, what do you got for props?
Well, in terms of props, there's not much available. However, you can potentially take odds to win the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference if you just don't feel comfortable with any of these teams being able to either beat the Bruins in the Cup or anything like that. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is it worth it to take the actual prop to make it the Cup, or is it rather worth it to bet them to win the Cup and then hedge it if they make it to the Cup? So I feel like there's a couple ways to look at it. And I feel like I don't know what your thoughts on that are, Scott, depending on either winning the prop outright or just hedging it if they make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. So do you have any thoughts on that or no?
I'm not a hedger. I'm not,
you're not a gardener in your part-time?
Generally not. No. Now if I've got an extreme price, I've got a 20-1 plus, yeah, I'll probably hedge out of it. But I'm kind of a let it ride guy. I'm kind of an all or nothing sort of guy when it comes to those.
Yeah, actually, I don't hedge either. So
you got a 10-1 shot. You just let her go, right, Dave?
Yeah.
I tend to hedge it late, but if I had to lean to any type of, I mentioned the Oilers 25-1 to potentially win the Cup. I think them to win the West at 12-1 is definitely a decent price there. The thing you have to wonder, I'm not sure how travel is going to play a factor. Are they going to be playing at home? How is this exactly going to be working? Is it a neutral site?
I did not. That's what I did not see anywhere.
Yeah, I didn't catch that either. So.
And I actually looked for it to see what the situation was going to be. I'm assuming they're not playing everything at Disney World. That would be kind of busy down there with the NBA as well. I'm assuming they're going to play on their home ice without fans. I don't know, and you guys can speak to that better as far as what the home field advantage, the home ice advantage is in hockey. Is it a massive thing like it is in others?
It's actually it's the least, I think, of all the sports.
Yeah, it kind of comes in waves. where it seems like one Stanley Cup playoffs, a home team can't buy a win, and then the next year the home team wins like 80% of the games. It's really weird. It seems like it comes in flow and in just different flows. But the reason why I brought it up is because of the fact that I think we can agree that teams having to travel to Canada is going to be pretty tough. And I think Edmonton I know the crowd might not be involved over there, but Edmonton definitely would be a difficult place to travel to for the sake of a team like whether it's going to be Colorado or whether it's going to be Vegas having to travel all the way to Edmonton. I think that's just going to be really annoying and I think jet lag could be a potential issue there. I think overall the props are kind of tough to come by because you don't really have many player props up anymore because they don't know if they're going to be playing any more regular season games or how that's going to work. So those props are gone. If you're looking for a quote-unquote conference champion props, if you want to look for some long shots, I mentioned the Blackhawks to win the Cup. If you want to take them to win the Western Conference, they're plus 6,000. I think that's a decent look. If you want to look towards the Eastern Conference, I think Pittsburgh at plus 750 is definitely an interesting look there, especially if Gensel's able to come back. Pittsburgh looked really good over the last couple of weeks before. The team that got screwed over the most, in my opinion, was the Flyers. The Flyers were on fire, and they probably would have ended up winning the division had they not gotten locked out from the rest of the season. I can't take them at 5-1, but they were sizzling, and I think I can't really touch them now. Pittsburgh, you got Crosby, you got Malkin. You got pretty experienced goalies. Your defensive core is still pretty solid. I think Pittsburgh's a solid team at 7.5-1 there in the Eastern Conference. So mostly if I had to pick anything for the props, I'd probably lean to Edmonton at 12-1, and I would lean to Pittsburgh at 750.
Okay, and of course we've got matchup odds as far as the series goes. Dave, you mentioned that you didn't hate the Columbus Blue Jackets. Of course, they would square off with the Bruins there in the first round. How do you feel? What's that?
Bruins would have a bye.
Well, I mean, we're looking at the potential second. I'm sorry.
Assuming the
round of 16. Yeah. Right. And these are again sort of future prices here. But you see any value on the Blue Jackets at plus 275 there against the Bruins, Dave?
That would be a tough one. I do like the Bruins the Bruins to win it all. But as I said, I would not rule out the Blue Jackets who just they were also on fire heading into the break, and they're a team with experience, and they will also have the advantage of playing in the first round over the Bruins who won't. I think they can take the Bruins to 7 games if that's a prop. I can't go against the Bruins again, even against the Blue Jackets.
Last year, the Blue Jackets lost to the Bruins in 5 or 6.
I think it was 6.
I think it was 6 also. I think that's the issue I have with Columbus there is the fact that they lost to the Bruins last year in 6. They lost Duchesne, they lost Bobrovsky, they lost a bunch of pieces. And Seth Jones, I don't know if he's back or not, but I know he had a serious injury and he's their best defenseman. So I think the issue you have is if they lost the Bruins last year in 6 and they lost arguably their 3 best players, whether it was based on free agency or injury, can they really upset this team that beat them last year? And I'm a little bit skeptical of that.
It does seem like a tall hill to climb in a 7-game series. The most evenly matched series would be the Battle of Pennsylvania if it comes to fruition between the Penguins and the Flyers. And right now you got them both listed at minus 110.
Penguins win every single time they play the Flyers. It's amazing how often they match up in the playoffs, and the Penguins basically win every time. It's actually kind of ridiculous. If you look at the track records on there, I can't even tell you the last time that Philadelphia has beaten Pittsburgh in a playoff series. I know Pittsburgh beats Philadelphia pretty much every time they play, so I would have to lean to Pittsburgh.
Dave, growing up in Allentown, you're more of a Pittsburgh guy, I would assume?
Oh, no. Well, my nieces are, and they live in Bethlehem, so that's right outside Allentown.
David, you agree with that?
I'm more of a Flyers fan.
Well, sorry to bring up bad memories, but am I right when it seems like Pittsburgh always beats Philadelphia in every playoff series they play?
Yeah, they do. They have their number in the playoffs. Of course, we kind of got to throw these things out the window this time of year or this season. If once the playoffs get back, because it's a whole new world. It's a whole new. You're not playing with fans. We might even be at neutral sites. You don't know.
Right.
So, and I agree. I agree with Scott Steen that the Flyers were, and I put this in my post season write up already. When I did it a couple of months ago, that the break really hurt the Flyers. It just came at the worst time for them because they were just about ready to overtake the Capitals for the top spot in the Metro Division. So, can they get that momentum back? Both teams will be playing, without a bye. Or no, actually, the Flyers would be playing with bye, wouldn't they?
Yes, they would be the fourth. They would be the fourth team in the East.
Right. Yeah. So if they meet up in the next round, Pittsburgh has the advantage of having been playing, but I mean that's I can see why that's the most evenly matched, in that round because that's a hard one to take. You have advantages on both sides.
I have one question for Scott Steen here, not just based on hockey, but in general. If you have a situation where one team, you can probably relate to this, pretty much plays the same team in the playoffs all the time, and they always lose. And is it ever a good bet to bet on them to exercise the demons, or you pretty much just have to wait and see it happen first?
I'm an eternal optimist. I depending on the sport and the situation, but there's a good chance that there's been some changes. I don't factor that in. Generally speaking, I don't think that's a thing. I think there's too much turnover. There's too much change in personnel and coaching. Skill positions, whatever. Of course, I'm going to cap every series individually, but generally speaking, I'm not going to factor that in a lot. I would be that would not inhibit me from taking the team that is usually the downtrodden. Of course, I'm the one that thinks that Kirk Cousins' Monday night thing isn't real. So take what I say in this situation with a grain of salt, because I don't think we have a big enough sample size. And I think you can put together a case that he's not that bad on Monday nights. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But it does kind of tie into the fact that I am an eternal optimist, always looking for the underdog to rise up and correct the situation. And it only took me 50 years with the Chiefs and 30 years with the Royals. So obviously, my patience has paid off.
Well, look at the Washington Nationals. They never won a playoff series, and then this year they go on and win the whole darn thing. So
right, underdog unite, my friend. What about you, Scott? Are you do you tend to factor that in? If one team owns another team, do you think that's a deal?
For me, yes.
They get in their head.
I think it depends on the sport, but because some sports are just more unpredictable than others. But at some point, I agree that there are going to be different players and some different coaches and stuff like that. But the veterans on there's got to be some type of mental age. You got to think of it that way. If you constantly have your season ended by the same team over and over again, at some point mentally, you might just think it's not meant to be. And all it takes is a little bit of doubt to creep in before the whole thing unravels. For example, you had the Capitals against the Penguins. They pretty much played every year for 3 or 4 straight years, and Pittsburgh won every single time. And then one time, the Capitals finally beat the Penguins, and they won the Cup. So I'm not saying that you immediately say there's no hope, but some things can snowball a little bit, and I do think that plays a bigger factor than you're making it out to be.
Well, having said that, I will speak to this. We had the situation. Again, Dave, I don't know how old you are, but Scott, I know you're too young for this, but in the 70s, where the Royals lost 3 consecutive playoff series to the New York Yankees in 76, 77, 78. They missed the playoffs in 79, and then they were able to exercise their demons with George Brett's 3-run homer in the 5th game against the Yankees. They went on to, of course, lose to the Phillies in 1980, but they were able to finally get over that hump and make the World Series. And another thing is, of course, with the local team here, the Chiefs are having that kind of run against the entire Western Division in the AFC. They've lost three division games in 4 years. So I think they're, at least for the regular season, they are certainly in the heads of these teams from the West who have all undergone.
So just to ask, that Chiefs thing you just said, do you think that plays a factor when they match up against other teams in their division? Because based on what you just said, you would assume that it doesn't.
Right. I think it gives the Chiefs a level of confidence because they've had Andy Reid. What's that?
So you do think it matters?
I do. In that situation, I do. I don't think Denver goes in with changing head coaches. I don't think Vic Fangio has it in the back of his mind that they haven't won a game and they're 0-6 or whatever. But I think the Chiefs, I think it does, even if it's a little subconscious, I think it does give them a little boost of confidence to know that they have actually owned these teams for the last 4 seasons.
So you believe it has more of an impact on the team that's been doing the winning than the team that's been doing the losing?
Yes. I don't believe one team is destined to get owned by another team, especially in the playoffs. I think that's a totally different animal. But I think in rare situations like that, I think it does give the team, especially because a lot of times, and this is the case with the Chiefs, they've held together a lot of the same personnel, the same coaching staff, where year after year they've seen success with these guys. So, yeah, I think it makes a little bit of a difference there. So, yeah, I don't want to semi-contradict myself, but, yeah, I'll give you that out. I'll give you that one, Scott.
No, I feel like the issue that you have with the team that constantly gets owned is the fact that if you go down early, you go down 1-0. There's no party that's just going to say, oh, here we go again.
I don't, as a fan, you certainly feel that way. I don't know how much of that attitude permeates the team itself.
I don't know either, but definitely as a fan, the thought is always there.
And I think it could be a little bit of a difference in college and pros. I think once you have the maturity level of playing professionally, I think it probably affects you less than it would in college. I think there's less of a momentum factor in the pros.
Yeah, like those teams in the SEC, once they're down 14-0 Alabama, they're like, it's over.
Yeah. And I think no matter how hard you try to fight that, I think that's certainly a thing. I think that certainly creeps in the back of your mind if you're a 19-year-old sophomore and you're down 14-0 to Nick Saban. Yeah, I agree, Dave. I think that's absolutely a thing.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder how this is going to play in the NFC or AFC East this year. New England's been beating up on teams forever in that division. Are they still going to have the mental edge now that Brady isn't there?
I don't think so. They're going to look across. So. They're going to look across, see Stidham, and just go, all right, we actually have a shot here. I think it's going to have a reverse effect. I think they're going to look over and say, Brady's not here. It's going to be like a kid opening presents on Christmas. They're just going to look over and go, we have a chance? We haven't had a chance in 2 decades. I don't know what's going on right now. But I think it'll have the reverse effect for the AFC East.
All right. Very good. Well, guys, this has been fun. We're getting close to sports. It's kind of been my sign-off every day when we do a show that everybody just to keep heart and keep positive vibes coming, that sports are going to come back. And it looks like that is actually going to be the case. So we'll probably know a lot more here in the next week or so about baseball, and we'll see what happens as the NBA finalizes their plans and the NHL firms up their plans and gives us maybe some starting dates and things like that. The door may be opening just a little bit. I'm pretty excited. Dave, you excited to get back to normal?
Yes, I am. Sometimes writing, I like writing the articles that I have been writing, but it's a little bit different when you're writing the projection articles, on teams, how they're going to do against another team. So I'm looking forward to getting back to handicap and that stuff.
Yeah. And Scott and I totally get it. Cause we just spent a couple of weeks on, doing basically looking under every crack and crevice for NFL bets. And it's a weird feeling doing it, not knowing if those games are actually going to be played. It's like writing letters to someone and not knowing if they're getting them or not. You're pouring out your emotions and all this stuff, and you don't even know if they're getting through. We could be getting our.
I know you're an old soul. I know you're an old soul because you just talked about writing letters. So it's a little bit. That's a throwback and a half right there.
What the hell do you have to be to write letters? What did they stop writing letters 10 years ago? 15 years ago?
I don't know. I know it was a very big plot point in Forrest Gump, if that means anything. That movie came out in the 90s. So.
Well, you may be happy about this, Scott Steen. I did 2 articles recently over at Winners and Winers. People can find them there. I did the offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year. And offensive rookie of the year, I took your running back from Kansas City, Hilaire.
Did you really?
Hilaire. So I took him. I took him over Burrow. I think he's got a better chance of putting up some monster numbers in that offense. That
got a little more help around him than Burrow does.
Yeah, and defensively, I went with I went with the favorite, Chase Young. So
okay,
a couple good articles there. I broke down about 10 different players from each offense and each defense.
Excellent.
So
nice.
That's a good plug. Make sure you check that out over at winnersandwiners.com. Dave always writing good content over there. By the way, what were you gonna say, Scott?
I was going to say I personally lean Burrow, but I feel like you can go either way. No really big deal there. You haven't seen anybody practice.
Burrow's actually a heavy favorite. He's like plus 200, and Hilaire was second at plus 700. So
yeah, for value, I can understand that. I think Burrow should be that big of a favorite, but I mean, it seems to be a quarterback award historically. But we've already talked about the award props on this show, so it's fine. Overall, it's always nice talking about sports, especially with them returning after such a very unique period of time that we hope none of us will ever have to experience again. So it's nice to start to see the switch shift a little bit to a more positive direction.
Absolutely. And Scott, we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to talk. We'll talk a little bit of NASCAR. Got another NASCAR Wednesday night race being run from Charlotte, about half the distance, so that should be fun. And Scott's on quite a little NASCAR heater. Now, I really had a good set yesterday. I had Truex, I had Chase Elliott, and who else did I have? I told you one more that I had.
You had Hamlin? Did you have Hamlin or no?
No, I didn't have Hamlin. No.
Oh, you had Austin Dillon at 12,500.
Yeah, and they, and my top 2 guys were fighting there all day long, and they just kind of faded there at the end. And
Elliott was going to win, and then he had to.
Yeah, we talked about Chase Elliott running out of gas, and he was on that edge the whole day. The whole day he was pushing that envelope. He was 1 or 2 laps away from running out of gas. Every pit stop he came in, he stayed out late, and it finally jumped up and bit him.
He would have won. He would have won.
Yeah, I think that's right. So, but Scott and I, we're spitting out some good NASCAR takes, believe it or not. So
first racer I mentioned was Keselowski, and he pulled it out. So definitely. Nice. Yep. It's a very rare moment, but a good moment when you.
I had Bowman. I had Alex Bowman yesterday. I had the '88 car.
Yeah, it's a good moment when you have two of your futures on the outright wins are in first and second place. I had Elliott and I had Keselowski, and they were 1-2 with 2 laps to go. So that was definitely a pretty solid sign. My odds were pretty good at that point.
Yeah, like I said last week, I don't know what we've been wasting all our time on these sticks and ball sports, Scott. NASCAR is where the money's at, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dave. Hey, thanks for joining us here on Monday on Memorial Day, Dave. Appreciate
no problem. Hey, one more thing to look forward to is June 14th is the next WWE pay-per-view. So
what do we got, Dave? Is it TLC?
Backlash.
Backlash? I don't know what that is. What is that?
It's they started it like 2 or 3 years ago, that pay-per-view. So.
Well, we'll definitely have you on to break it down. So
yeah, okay. Hey, real quick, since you brought it up, let me ask you this: were you as disappointed as I was about how the Money in the Bank actually played out? I thought that was going to be a lot more fun, a lot longer. I liked the winners. I thought that was kind of cool, but did you?
Yeah, I wasn't as impressed. Definitely not as impressed as the Boneyard match.
Right. I thought that was going to be like the Boneyard times 4. I thought they were going to be fighting in all the offices, and I was really kind of underwhelmed by the 20-minute match there.
I mean, Dave won against us when we both had the New Day, and how'd the Forgotten Sons go for you, Dave?
Yeah, that didn't do too well.
Yeah. I got it. And there's the mind of a sports bettor. A winning sports bettor never forgets a bet if he can throw it in somebody else's face. It was like 3 weeks ago. Hey, remember when New Day won on WrestleMania? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, it's always nice to break it off in the.
Do you know who's supposed to be in that WWE card?
What's that?
Did they announce who's going to be in that upcoming WWE card?
I believe you're going to see. Well, you're not going to see Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch is done now.
She probably shouldn't be there because she's pregnant. So she
relinquished her belt. So,
she not growing, so.
They haven't, as far as I know, they haven't announced any matches yet for that event. So I should find out more tonight on Raw.
I'm going to assume Ronda Rousey will also not be in attendance.
No, she's, as far as I know, she's left WWE.
Yeah, she wants to start a family also. She's done.
There you go.
So,
by the way,
as soon as we find that out, we'll let you know. But we'll definitely have Dave on for that. So,
yes, for your viewing pleasure. Speaking of wrestling, if you haven't seen it yet on Amazon, I highly recommend Fighting with My Family, the true story of the wrestler Paige.
She's one of my favorites. I love Paige.
It's a great story. It's a great cast. She grew up in a wrestling family in Norwich, England. If you're a fan of Simon Pegg with Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, it's got his sidekick, Nick. I can never remember his last name. The big guy that always plays his best friend. He's the dad. And the lady that played Cersei Lannister on Game of Thrones is the mom. Vince Vaughn has a nice turn as the WWE representative. Great movie. Highly recommended if you haven't seen it. The Rock has a couple of The Rock has a couple of scenes and a very nice scene with The Rock there at the wrestling training camp. And it's a feel-good movie, a lot of fun to watch, and it is mostly a true story. So if you haven't checked that out, check out Fighting with My Family. That's my plug for the day.
I think my favorite wrestling true story is Nacho Libre. Right?
And on that note, everybody, we do thank everybody for stopping by. Dave, as always, thanks for joining us. We'll be talking maybe some wrestling and maybe some hockey as that gets closer. Scott, thanks for your witticisms as always appreciated. Congratulations.
Thanks for the barbecue advice.
Huh?
Thanks for the barbecue and grilling advice.
Absolutely. Hopefully, if you've learned nothing else today, you've learned the difference between barbecuing and grilling. I'm here to help. I'll do anything I can to help, especially in the food arena. So, happy Memorial Day once again to all of you out there. Enjoy the day off. Special thanks to all of our service people, and a special thanks again to all of our Gold Star families and all the service members who have made the ultimate sacrifice over the years. We appreciate you. We love you. As lighthearted as we get here, we never forget about the people that make it all possible for us on a daily basis. So for all of us over here at winnersandwhiners.com, I'm Scott Steen. He is Scott Reichel. He is also David Hess. We thank you guys for joining us. Come back and see us tomorrow. Scott and I are going to be talking a little NASCAR. But until then, you guys take care. Go out there and eat some barbecue for me. Have some pulled pork, little baby back ribs. Go get your grub on, get that barbecue sauce smeared all over your face. All right. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.